I just spent the year of my life incarcerated.
Okay, well, calm down, first of all.
Rod, do you want to get out of here?
Just listen.
Listen to me and do what I'm saying, and we'll get you out of here.
I just want to go home and be with my daughter. That's the whole thing I was supposed to do.
How old is your daughter?
3. Friday, I was supposed to go to my girlfriend's house to go see my daughter. It was like 2 in the morning. Like, that's when my ride came. Cops, they was just like chilling on the end of the block. And then he tell everybody, like, get out the car. So we all get out the car, put our hands on the car. And like, he come back and he like, well, who weed is this? And he was like, you're going to jail for possession of marijuana. And I'm like, how can I go to jail for something that wasn't in my possession? You can't sit 3 people down and walk out a room and come back, a bag of weed sitting there, and you just put it on everybody.
I don't know, Roger. I wasn't there, I can't tell you.
Out of somebody, that's... Dang.
And you're telling me this is money that you've earned in 1 week, 2 weeks, or...
Nah, that's money I had for like 3 weeks. I had more, I don't know what happened to it. I think when the officers ripped me off when they were slamming me on the ground.
Eventually, you're gonna do right.
I miss what you... I am doing right.
I know, but you're right here with us, again.
That's not my fault.
This is not the first time that Roderick's been here, and usually when a child comes in more than once, it's a high percentage that he will be a repeat offender again. And
I've been here like 3 or 4 times. I did a whole year in boys' school. And that's why I'm so nervous right now, because I don't want to go back there. Like, it ain't nowhere that somebody will want to be.
For the 3,000 kids that pass through Lake County Juvenile Complex each year, the punishments can range from a sleepless night in juvenile detention to the harshest punishment of all, commitment to the Department of Corrections.
Going to Indiana boys' school or girls' school is the most restrictive placement or a restrictive punishment I could give them. Because you lose your freedom, you're in a prison. It's the worst thing I can do to them.
You know, some people, it takes a big problem just to really open their eyes. And that's just like for me, for instance, like I went to boys' school, you know, and it calmed me down a lot. Like if you read my reports and everything about me, like you would be like, why would he be here now and he doing so good? Like, I believe boys' school changed me.
He's done so much better than in the past. He was failing his classes, that changed, grades started improving, started working, and unfortunately, when you hang around with the wrong crowd, you get blamed sometimes for things that you don't even do.
The big problem is me just being here for something that I really ain't do this time.
So they're picking on you?
Because I'm black and I look like a thug and I wear jewelry and I got money in my pocket and they think I'm a drug dealer. That's what it is. They just think I'm a drug dealer because I look at all that, man. Come on, they think everybody's selling drugs when they black, and it's not even like that. I work hard for everything that I got and everything that I accomplished.
Well, it's your job to prove them wrong.
That's what I do. That's why my money's still sitting there, because I got a check for every dollar that's there. No drug money.
You have so much potential. You were doing so much better. You were doing really good.
Yeah, but you're saying it like I'm honestly like was out there like getting in trouble. Like I was just going to.
I don't know what happened.
I was just going to.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if you're out there trying to get in trouble. That's what the court system is there for, to determine whether you're guilty or innocent. The fact of the matter is that he's been here more than once. So it is hard for us to believe when they're repetitive offenders.
This is a maximum security facility. These kids will say anything they can if they think that they can get away with it or if they think they can get out.
While most of the kids inside LCJC have one story or another to declare their innocence or why they're in trouble, it's not the business of the staff to know.
There's really no reason for us to know it. Every kid is here to be treated equally and fairly. That's up to the courts and the judges to deal with the crime aspect of it.
After 26 years, you've heard so many stories. I've had so many kids tell me so many stories. And of course, there are those that seemed very genuine. Could it be a game? Definitely. I've been burned before. But there are other people in the courtroom that helped me make decisions, say the counselor that was present, the probation officer helped me. And listening to both sides really lays out for you what each kid has done or hasn't done and the good and the bad points. I mean, at that point, you're in court and, you know, it's the end of the road here. Now it's put up or shut up. You know, you might as well just do it now and tell the truth.
Did you have any problems with him?
No, other than he gave me the wrong name.
And you're not going to charge him with false? You've done that before, Morris. You've already had charges of lying to police officers. It's better to be honest. So he was in somebody's apartment or just on the vicinity of the apartment?
Him and several of his friends were out smoking marijuana on the front porch of the Cloisters apartment complex.
Okay. Are you high right now? Were you smoking marijuana today?
No. He tells me he wasn't smoking. There was about 7 of them out.
I'm just going to have the nurse look at him real quick to determine that he's not under the influence. They found him today because he was smoking marijuana with his friends, and they ran all their names. At first, Morris was lying about his identity because he knew he had a warrant.
You didn't take any drugs? Why are your eyes like that?
I will.
All slanty and red?
They red.
They're red.
We're gonna need medical clearance. We can't accept him like this.
She believed that he was under the influence of marijuana.
All right, we'll be back.
Thank you. So prior to him being admitted to our facility, he will require a medical clearance. So Maryville Police Department's taking him to the hospital where they're going to conduct a drug test. So positive for
Yep, that's
marijuana.
it. But we knew that was gonna happen.
Do you feel any of the effects of marijuana still? No? He was released off a house arrest in April of this year, and then he failed to come to his court date in July. So he didn't appear in court. His mother did, his counselors did, his probation officer did, but Morris was on runaway status. Why didn't you go to court on the 24th, but everybody else did?
I'm scared.
You were scared? Did you get a chance to talk to your probation officer prior to going to court?
My probation officer, he was talking about sending me to placement. I was like, no. That's why I ain't go to court, because they said they're going to send me to placement for 2 years.
Commitment to the Department of Corrections is the harshest punishment there is. Many of the kids that pass through LCJC are committed to placement facilities that are equipped to rehabilitate them and help them get treatment for whatever issues may have led them down the path of trouble in the first place.
I can't even control my anger. I've been angry all my life. Last time I was here because me and my mom got into it, and I punched a hole in the wall.
But it makes it worse when you don't appear in court. Now you present yourself as a flight risk. You understand that? You just make it worse for yourself if you run away from your problems.
And I remember back, like 5 years ago, my grandma told me, if you keep frowning, your face gonna be stuck like that. And I think she wasn't mad.
I've been coming to Lake County Juvenile since like 03, 05, between them years, one of them years. Been coming for a long time.
Although 17-year-old Roderick has found himself back at LCJC on charges of resisting arrest and possession of marijuana, all of those involved with this case mark him as a model student who's working to turn his life around, remove his gang tattoos, and get ready for the arrival of his second child.
You ain't got no time for no games, no nothing. I know you don't want your son living the same lifestyle you live.
I know, that's why I gotta do good.
That's what I want to hear.
When I got out of boot camp and I found out that I was supposed to have a child, like, it changed me because like, I got something else to live for. I just can't live for, like, gang banging. And I was just gonna go back to school and complete this last year and get on with my life.
So you wouldn't tell me you ready to leave the streets alone? Done with it.
I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Roderick is adamant about his innocence. He claims that the marijuana was dropped by another person in the car when they fled.
My probation officer, she told me like a couple times like I've been one of her best like people. If I was doing so good, why would I let some marijuana, mess up my life?
Sure. A lot of the kids that come here, they repeat offenders. And a quarter of them, you lose. They end up dead, burned up on the railroad tracks, murdered, just random gunfire. If you can change one child, then you made a difference.
These are kids who've seen things and gone through things, certainly, beyond what most of us have ever experienced. So what I try and do is getting the court to recognize that these are still kids, and that kids who've made mistakes, maybe more mistakes than a lot of us are used to, but they are able to learn and rehabilitate. And so my hope and goal with all of these kids is that the system works and that we get them the help that they need so they can go on and at least live a productive life. I want to spend a little bit of time right now talking to you a little bit about what happened, then more specifically about our strategies in going to court tomorrow and achieving hopefully what it is that you want, and that's getting out of here and going home.
I want a lawyer, because this is not fair for how you try to put something on me that's not even mine.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like what happened with you is being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's what I see, but a lot of people not gonna see that. And just because I've been in trouble before, that's not gonna help me, because I've been in trouble already.
Well, that's why we're talking now. What I want to do is be able to distinguish what happened before versus all the progress that you made.
Now that I'm sitting here for nothing, it made me feel even worse. So, why do I gotta go through this? When you try to do something good, it's like bad things come to you and stop you from doing good things. But I ain't gonna let this stop me. I'm still gonna go to school to be an electrician. Still gonna take care of my kids, and I'm still gonna be me.
All right, so the point is, they weren't your drugs. They weren't on you. You didn't know that those drugs were in the car.
I didn't know they was in the car.
When the police came, your buddy took off, you stayed.
If I don't have anything, what's my reason to run? I should have went in the house. I wanted to do that, but I'm not that type of person, because I want to show people oh, I'm not no bad person. That's why I went back and just talked to him, but he got aggressive with me, for no apparent reason. Then he thought I was an adult, because I got a nice gold chain. I came in here, nice clothes, and he think I was a drug dealer.
The number one goal that I would have for any of these kids is that they never end up in jail in the adult Department of Corrections. And that's the ultimate goal, is that these kids learn their lesson and never have to face a judge who's worried about how long do we lock this kid up for.
But I'm just gonna pick myself back up. That's it. That's all I can do.
Well,
I don't mean to cry, but
okay.
I'm just hurt right now.
No, I mean, this is not a place you want to be, and like I say, our job is to get you out. And that's the more stuff, Rod, that you can focus on of the reasons why you shouldn't be in here and you should be out taking care of your child. Those are the things that we're going to want the court to hear about tomorrow. Well, Rod, you've convinced me that you're certainly on the right track with things. Now our job is to convince the judge tomorrow.
The last time Morris was arrested, it was for damaging his mother's home in a fit of rage. When he didn't show up for a subsequent court hearing, a bench warrant was issued. Yesterday, he was picked up on that warrant, and now he'll have to face the judge. But first, he'll have to face his mother.
So I can get out tomorrow?
I don't know. Do you think you should? Why?
I didn't even do nothing.
You didn't do anything? You didn't go to court?
I know, I was scared.
You were scared?
Because they said they was gonna give me 2 years of placement.
You should have just gone to court.
I'm going to court now, though.
Mm-hmm. You don't have a choice. They told me they took you to the hospital. You test positive for marijuana, so you've been smoking, huh?
I don't know.
You don't know? What you smoking that for?
I thought that was gonna help for stress.
You feel like you need something to calm you down? Then that's what you should have been telling the counselor and the therapist, if that's how you feel. This is what I'm talking about. The things you're telling me, you need to tell them. You may have a chemical imbalance, who knows? There's medicine for that, and people are not crazy who take it.
I told people they ain't gonna help.
How do you know you keep going with the negative train of thought? What makes you what makes you get angry like that?
Just stuff people do.
Even when when things don't go your way, you stay angry.
That's what I'm saying. Being in here is gonna make it worse and worse. I can feel it right now.
You keep telling yourself it's gonna get worse than it is.
I keep punching walls, man.
Punching it for what? Have you been praying? Why you crying?
I'm crazy.
You what?
I know I'm crazy.
You feel like you're going crazy?
I know I'm crazy.
You are not. I hate to see you like this. Who do you want me to bring to court? Nobody? Just me? Can I tell you something? I love you to death, but you do need some help with your anger. Some professional help. And I don't think you're crazy, but I think something inside is bothering you. What you think?
I want to be with my family.
You want to be with your family? Then you're going to be with your family. Wherever you go, we're coming. And if they send you far, we coming there too. Okay?
It feels different when I cry. I ain't cried in a long time.
It's good to cry sometimes to relieve stress. There's nothing wrong to cry. There's nothing wrong.
After a stressful weekend in detention, Roderick prepares for his day in court by meeting with his probation officer, while his mother sits down with his court-appointed counselor and discusses strategy. He'll have a team on his side, but his history with the courts will not be invisible to Judge Bonaventura.
So this today is your detention hearing. The judge that's going to hear your case is going to look at if there's probable cause to believe that you committed the act of possession and the act of resisting.
Miss Sarah, I feel like I've been working so hard, but and it's the first downfall I had since I've been home.
I know.
And I don't want to mess up everything that I've been trying to accomplish. Cause you know I've been doing too good, Miss Sarah. Even from school to being outside.
And you're the one that said to me, remember what you said to me before your last court date?
I wanted to stay on probation.
Keep me on probation, it's gonna help me out, and that's what we did, right?
But the biggest thing that he's done, that the judge is really going to commend him on, is the removal of his gang tattoos.
Yeah, he covered it up.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's an admission that he's turning his life around. He doesn't want the gang style anymore. He doesn't want the gang life. And that was a lot to give up. His respect, his authority, his position within the gang, it's all gone.
It's just I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Police was like, well, we found some marijuana. I was like, well, it's not mine. He was like, well, somebody got to go to jail for this.
And I told him, certain stuff I can't figure out for you no more. You get to a certain age, you know, I can't do it for you. You got to do it for yourself.
So what you're saying is like 90% of the time, 99% of the time, he's fine.
Yeah, hey, if Roger could be outside at 2:30 in the morning, it's really not too much outside to do at 2:30 in the morning.
Right. But that 1%,
and
bring him in here. 1% will say, well, I'm going to go out at 2:30 in the morning.
It's consequences. I keep telling them.
Well, like I said, we'll go to court, we'll talk to the judge, we'll let her know how you've been doing, but she's gonna make that final decision. All we can tell her is, since you've come home up until now, how you've been doing. Okay? And that's a good report. That's not a bad report. So we'll have to go in there, see what she has to say, and we'll go from there. Okay? All right.
Today in court, both Roderick and Morris will find out whether or not they get to go home to await their next hearing. If not, they'll have to remain detained. Judge Bonaventura will make that decision.
There's two reasons why you would order a child detained, whether he's a danger to himself or to others, or there's an unlikelihood that he'll come back to court for the second hearing. And so if you make the decision that they are a danger, you detain them. And if you find that they're not a danger, then you release them to the parent.
Brown!
Come on. Right now, I feel like I'm gonna go home. I don't know my probation officer for how good I've been doing since I've been home from boys' school. So, I may go home today, hopefully. 1 second.
you ready, Your Honor? Right this way, Roger. I need you to stay to your left, young man. Go stand next to your attorney.
He actually asked me to stay on probation throughout the summer until his 18th birthday at his last hearing, because he felt that the extra supervision for myself and Mr. Zimberski would really help him get through the summer to ensure that he would be able to stay on the right track. In almost 7 years, I've never had a juvenile ask me for that extra time with probation and with the therapist. They want to get off, get done, and call it a day. And Roderick actually came to me and looked me in my face and said, "Can you please stay with me on my case? Let me stay on probation with you so that we can get through this."
Can you be more specific about the level of improvement that you've seen in the past year of working with him?
He had an allegiance with a street gang, and there was a lot of respect that he got with the street gang, a lot of authority with the street gang and position. And recently, Roderick has terminated his association by removing the tattoos on his arms, which is a measurable feat.
How significant of a step is that for somebody who's been affiliated with a gang to remove the gang signs from themselves?
It's a mind and mental step, a remarkable feat.
Do you believe that it would be safe for him to be released to the care and custody of his mother?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I have, Judge. Rod, let's talk first about what brings you here today. You're being charged with possession of marijuana and resisting law enforcement. Are you going to cooperate with the prosecutor's office in identifying the person whose marijuana that it was?
I can do that.
Will you do that?
I will do that, because it's not mine. I'm not going to jail for nothing that's not mine. I've been working too hard this year, sir. Too hard this year. I have improved my whole life. My mother told me a long time ago when I was in boys' school, if I ever in my life, from now to the time I'm dead, if I ever got locked up, she wasn't gonna come and see me. She wouldn't be here now. And you know, I felt that's why I know my mother believed me and she know the truth. That's why she here today.
That's all I have, Judge.
I have a question. Roderick, have you been having drug tests while you've been on probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you pass a drug screen today?
I believe I can.
What do you mean you believe you can?
I believe I can. I'd do it any other time.
Okay. All right, you can have a seat next to your lawyer. Well, I commend all the improvements that you've made in your life, and you've had a lot of people here today that have testified to that. But I wasn't quite convinced that your response to whether or not you could be clean today was, wasn't sure you were sure about it. Today what I'm going to do is order that you submit to a drug test. If he has a clean drug screen, I'm going to order that he be released on electronic home monitor. If he's dirty, then he's going to stay here.
What's it gonna be?
Hopefully I go home.
Hopefully you go home. Did you smoke marijuana the last 30 days or not?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. Sounds like you're gonna get comfortable here now. It's either yes or no. Not that you know of. What, someone smoke marijuana to you in your sleep?
I'm not worried about it completely. I'm going home.
Come on out, Morris. Talk to you.
Oh, hey, Morris, how are you? Don Ruck, I'll be your lawyer for today.
Morris was picked up on loitering and suspicion of smoking marijuana. But what's far more important to today's hearing is his tendency to not show up for hearings. He'll meet with Don Ruck to discuss strategy.
Today's hearing, the court's going to want to hear a little bit about what happened. They're going to want to make a decision whether or not to release you today. What do you want to have happen?
I want to get released.
Okay. Did you test positive for marijuana when you came in? You did?
Yeah.
All right. The court's going to ask you why you were using marijuana. Do you know how you'd answer that?
Yeah, I was going to tell them I was in a car with people. They were smoking marijuana. They let me hit it.
Okay. I'll tell you, one of the things that I note is that the probation department's recommending that you stay locked up. All right? We have our work cut out for us. The difficult challenge as a public defender for a child is distinguishing between what's in the child's best interest and what the child wants. Because in every case, every child wants to get out of here. But there's no question that as Morris's advocate, that I want him to go home, and my preference is that the children should be home with their parents as opposed to, detained in a detention center.
You knew you had a court hearing, didn't want to come.
to go. I was scared. They said they would give me 2 years placement.
So you're a runaway. Well, I'm not going to recommend that you go home. I'm going to try to keep you staying here so we can work something out.
I'm telling you, it's not going to work, sir.
Okay, come on. Something's going to work. Let's go back to your house. You're not going to run around like a chicken with your head cut.
Probation Officer Gordon Fleming is convinced that Morris needs more time with special care and rehabilitation. Don Ruck will argue that he should go home. But at the end of the day, it's Judge Bonaventura who will make the decision.
Sir, I think I understand your testimony to be that because Morris is not as available or participating with these services to the extent that you think appropriate, that he should just remain locked up.
Well, I'm basing that upon him running away from home, his mother not knowing where he is, and she was having a hard time controlling him and reasoning with him. He has failed a couple of drug tests. Morris has told me on several occasions that whatever I do is not going to work.
So you had previously recommended that he undergo anger management, and you had recommended family counseling and counseling services. Why don't we let it work itself through some more? Let's let this counseling take hold, the anger management take hold, before we say the answer is just to keep him locked up.
Well, that would be fine, but Morris has tended to befriend some young men. One, for instance, who was shot the other day in a drive-by shooting. Young people that he's been associating with. I believe it's safer for Morris to be here for us to work with Morris.
So now it's an issue of him being safe?
Well, that's one of the issues, yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Judge.
Anything else, Mrs. Guzik?
Mr. Fleming, just to reiterate, though, the main issue is you fear that Morris won't be present for future hearings.
Yes.
And that's based on his past behavior.
Yes, absolutely.
No further questions, Judge. Morris, when you didn't come to court on July 24th, did your mother come?
Yes.
Have there been other times when you leave the home without your mom's permission?
Yes.
When you go to school, do you go to school every day?
Yes.
Your attendance is perfect?
Yes.
Judge, can I have a brief moment with my client?
Go ahead.
Okay. Be honest. I'm telling you, she's got all the records from your school. Listen to the question and answer it honestly. Don't make it worse.
Anything else, Mrs. Guzik?
No, Judge.
All right, Mr. Ruck?
Judge, I would call Morris's mother, Angel, to the stand, please. If the court were to decide that Morris need not be locked up any longer, would you be willing to have him released to your custody?
I'm always willing, but I just wonder if that's what's best for him.
Well, do you think it's best to keep him locked up?
Here, no, I don't. But as far as what helps, I know that there is a problem, and he does need some help.
Does he recognize there's a problem?
Yes, he does.
Why do you say that?
We discussed it, and he does admit that there is an anger problem.
And do you think that it's appropriate that he go home with you?
I'll try.
That's what you want to do?
I'll try.
After listening to all the arguments and assessing the witnesses, I would say that the mother, Mrs. Mosley, certainly, gave her heartfelt testimony. And I could feel for her as a parent when she said she's willing, but I also think what she didn't go on to say, which I think she probably would admit to, is that he's a little bit of a handful for her. More importantly to me is that he's out on the street doing some very dangerous things. And if we all know that when you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. So this young man has been living on the street or between friends or doing something that he shouldn't be doing, all because he was afraid to come to court. He endangered himself and maybe others. And for those reasons, the court is going to order that he remain detained pending his next hearing because there's an unlikelihood that he will appear for a subsequent hearing. Are there any questions? All right, then this hearing's adjourned. Thank you.
Want to say anything to your mother?
I'll see you at 1:30.
He's all right. He won't be calling me. I was going to replace him.
Okay, it's okay. I'll see you at 1:30, all right? And you're going to be all right. I'll be here all day, every day.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Hang in there. I certainly understand why the court did what it did. There's not a solid support structure in place where this mother is saying, don't worry about it, I'm going to take care of this problem, and he's going to be back again. while I certainly was advocating for him to go home and would have liked to have seen that, I understand the court's decision.
Three weeks have passed since Morris's last hearing. In that time, he's remained detained, while court specialists have determined what's in his best interest. Today, he'll go back in front of the judge to find out what that is.
Okay, keep your hands behind your back.
The judge might send me to placement. Well, she probably might give me house arrest. If I was talking to the judge right now, I'd tell him, I'm trying to do better. I know I got a problem.
Relax him.
If you send me home and trust me, I'm gonna show you I can work my problem out with my whole family.
Well, Morris, you remember some time back we went through a detention hearing where you talked about your background, your history, and what you wanted to have happen, correct?
Yes.
Now, we're not going to go through all of that for today's hearing. All I want to know, Morris, is what you've learned since you've been locked up.
Well, what I learned since I've been detained was I know how to control my anger. And then I would like to go home with my family.
And can the court and can your mother believe you right now when you're saying that?
Yes, and my father.
Can you look them in the eye and tell them that you're going to fully comply with everything?
I'm going to fully comply. I'm going to do better. I'm trying to change my life. I don't want to be angry. I got a problem, I admit it.
What's your problem?
I have an anger problem.
That's all I have, Judge.
Mrs. Gusick, anything?
Morris, you said you couldn't go to your therapy appointments because the therapist came when you were sleeping. She came too early, or he came too early. What part of your smoking marijuana played into that?
I don't smoke in the morning time.
Well, when do you smoke?
Tell you the truth, probably around in the afternoon.
How did your running away from home in July until mid-August prevent you from meeting with your therapist?
I didn't run away.
So your mom knew where you were at?
No, she didn't know where I was at.
So you were a runaway?
Her boyfriend see me, my sister see me. I would come home and I would spend the night downstairs. She wouldn't even know it.
You're telling me people in your house knew you were sleeping in that house at night when there was a runaway report out for you? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
And they didn't tell your mother you were in the house?
They told her, but she ain't never seen
You said
it.
enough. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Ruck, anything else?
All I would say, Judge, is that being locked up, sitting here, does something, and I believe it has for Morris. I would suggest that we move in increments. We move in increments from where he was before with no real restrictions, just you need to do what we're telling you you're going to do, to now we're going to put a bracelet around your ankle and make sure that you're doing what we say you're going to do. Before we jump to the most severe conclusion, the recommendation that he be shipped off away from his family and his brothers and sisters who he hasn't seen in a very long time. So I would just ask that the court give some credence to what he said in the stand today. Thank you.
Judge, we've heard that Morris has done some soul searching while he's been detained for the last 3 weeks and apparently has seen the light. I'm not sure what light it is he's seen. What I've heard is a person that's still not taking responsibility for anything that he does. He's not going to get services unless this court takes him and puts him in a place where he can receive services, and he desperately needs services. I think that probation's recommendation for placement should be followed.
This is a difficult case for me for a lot of reasons. I think that this is a mom, too. I remember from the last hearing, she said, I'm always willing, always willing. And that's, to me, the sign of a really great mother. But at the same time, she acknowledges and admits that maybe he's not ready to come home. I mean, we've got a young man who's punching holes in the wall. We have a young man who's abusing drugs, and we've got a young man who left home for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks to avoid his mother because he knew there would be a conflict. And so that worries me that he's going to put himself in a situation that's going to become dangerous for him. So for all of those reasons, today the court is going to order that he be placed at Campagna Academy, and I'll order that his family participate in family counseling along with him so that he can return home sooner than later. All right. This hearing's adjourned. Thank you.
Say goodbye to your parents.
see you. We get to see you there. Okay.
I think Morris is a stinker.
Thank you.
Good luck. And I think that he gives his mother a run for her money. He's not to the point where he's really a danger to other people. So I don't see him as a hardened criminal at this point in his life. It's my job and the job of the juvenile court system to make sure he doesn't get to that point.
Rod, brought you a visitor. How are you?
2 weeks ago, Judge Bonaventura sent Roderick back into detention to await the results of a drug test. After one bit of shaky testimony left her unconvinced.
Can you pass a drug screen today?
I believe I can.
What do you mean you believe you can?
I believe I can. I'd do it any other time.
It was a difficult end to a court hearing that was really going Roderick's way, and things only got worse when the results came in.
After you tested positive for marijuana, I'm working with the prosecutor to try and get some type of agreement that gets this whole thing disposed of. The prosecutor was originally recommending 120 days locked up here. Here's what. Hold on, hang in there. Hang in there. I want you to get out of here.
But I don't want to be here. Y'all supposed to be helping me. Ain't nobody helping me. Nobody.
Roger, calm down.
I don't want to be here. I just spent the year of my life incarcerated.
Okay, well, calm down, first of all.
Listen to what I'm telling you. Here's what she's agreed to do, and I think this is what we should do. You're charged with two things: possession of marijuana, and resisting arrest. You admit the allegations of one, they'll dismiss the other, and then we can go in there and we can argue to the court whether you should be released, with time served.
Y'all want me to admit to something that I ain't even do.
Just listen.
Listen to me, what I'm saying. I'm trying to get an agreement for you that gets you out of here. You admit to one or the other. If you don't want to admit to marijuana, deny that, they'll dismiss it. You admit to resisting arrest. You never really know until somebody actually walks into court and, and faces the judge how they're going to react or what they're going to say. Oh, okay.
Whatever decision Roderick comes to in the next 5 minutes will shape his life for months and maybe years to come.
Mr. Brown, you've heard all the testimony today about what people think should happen to you. What do you want to have happen?
I understand I resisted law enforcement. And, me being back there in that room for 2 weeks, that really got to me. And I know I tested, positive for marijuana, but that's something I did, back in July, and I thought I was going to be clean by the time I came to court.
And I know some people might say, well, just using a little bit of marijuana isn't like, shooting somebody. But at the same time, do you understand the significance of that one use of marijuana, what it had on your family and your life, and frankly, on the underlying charges that you already had pending against you?
Well, I take full responsibilities for my actions, and I just feel like I let them down, like Miss Sarah and Bob, my mom. I just want to, go home and take care of my responsibilities.
Roderick, do you remember Judge Bonaventura asking you about taking a drug test?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, didn't you say you probably should be clean, something like that?
I probably should.
So you were trying to put one over on the judge, right?
No, I thought I was going to be clean, so that's why I didn't say yes, and that's why I didn't say no.
So you were hoping you were going to get by with it?
Not necessarily.
Well, you knew you were lying to the judge.
Judge, hold on. I'm going to object to that. He answered the question. The question the court asked was, would he pass a drug test, not did he use marijuana?
I'm going to sustain the objection.
No further questions, Judge.
I have a couple questions for Rod. You had tattoos removed, didn't you?
Yeah.
And what kind of tattoos were they?
I had gang tattoos, a scripture on my arm. I knew I was going to do better in life, and now that's why I removed the gang tattoos, because I ain't want part of that life no more. Because, you know, the gang is not here helping me right now.
Is there anything else you want to tell me today?
Regardless if I go home today or 2 weeks from now, when I get out, I'm still gonna go to school and I'm still gonna be this positive person I became because I like the person that I became.
There's a whole bunch of stuff I could say to you today, Rod. I know that it was huge for you to remove the gang tattoo, which speaks volumes to me. After doing this job for 26 years, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has, but no one that I'm aware of that's ever done that and has, you know, sat up on the stand and testified that you've done it, knowing that you're going to go back out in the same city that you were in when you belonged to that gang and maybe take your chances of what denouncing them might do to you today. You're like this close to succeed, and you're so afraid of that it's easier for you to fail. Just think about this hearing today and all this argument about whether you're a good person or you're not. There's only really one opinion in this room right now that matters, and it's mine. And I think you are a good person, and I think you're going to make it. And for that reason, today the court is going to order that you serve 30 days in the Lake County Juvenile Center, and I'm going to give you credit for the time you've served. I'm going to release you today and order you be released to the custody of your mother.
Okay. May I hug Miss Bob Sombersky and Miss Sarah Essen?
If they want to hug you, you can hug them.
I'm not going to make that request.
Thanks, Bob. That's my first
You
time
like me
out
now,
to
huh?
hug you, Miss
I
Sarah.
know.
You know, even though he did test dirty for marijuana and he was arrested, I don't want that to wipe away all the good he's done over the past year, which for somebody like Roderick is just enormous.
It's the last time I see you, Miss Jane.
That's a good thing.
I made 18 tomorrow.
Excellent. However, going to read about you in the paper.
He was locked up for 2 weeks. He paid the price for coming here with a dirty drug screen. I think he got that message. And he needed today somebody to say to him, I believe in you, and I just felt it was the right time to convey that message to him.
If you want to start out, I thought we'd look back first at a case that we felt was just one of the most dramatic we filmed back then, and that was the case of Roderick.
Yes.
And as you recall, Roderick was really a unique case because, you know, he had denounced his gang, he had removed his gang tattoos, and he wound up in detention because he was out with friends late at night. Car got pulled over. Police said they found weed, and he was hauled back into detention. Can you recall your memories? And I know this is throwing it back a ways, but can you recall your memories of meeting Roderick back then and how you felt as you prepared to represent him in his juvenile court hearing?
So I remember meeting Roderick for the first time. I was immediately taken back by how intelligent he was. He was very well spoken, seemed to really understand what it is that had happened to him. And this sounds kind of strange, but he actually understood the seriousness and the consequences of what was facing him. A lot of the kids, you know, when 13, 14, 15, and they come from just a very, very different backgrounds, don't necessarily even have an appreciation for how serious of a circumstance it is that they're in. Roderick, on the other hand, I think did have that appreciation, which explains a little bit of the, I think, frustration that he had, and maybe some of the frustration I had in kind of getting through to him on what some of the options would be for an appropriate resolution. So looking back on it, it really seemed like Roderick was actually one of the people who we might be able to do some good for, because he really understood the significance of what he was involved in, and maybe would not want to get involved in it again if we handle things correctly.
Right, right. And can you talk a little bit about how important it is for kids like Roderick to have someone like you representing them in court? Because oftentimes a lot of kids or families will waive their right to an attorney, or they really don't understand how important it is to have an attorney such as yourself representing them in court. How important is that?
Yeah. So, you know, imagine for a moment that, you know, you're 14, 15 years old and you get, you know, picked up, put in a police car, handcuffed, you know, taken to jail, you're away from your family, you're put in a holding cell, you're with a a population of people who are in jail for whatever reason, not necessarily the kind of place you want to hang out. And you're told you're going to be facing a judge who's going to decide whether you stay there or whether you go home. And imagine now you're 15 years old going through that. And so, it's scary enough, it's daunting enough for an adult to have to go through and face those things. But as a child, for me as a public defender, it was always important, no matter which kid it was I was representing, to make contact with them early and then often during the process, because you really want them to understand that what they're going through is something that has an end point to it, that we just have to get there. I don't want them sitting incarcerated for day in and day upon day, fearing and wondering what was going on. You want to really get to them right away, let them know they have an advocate. Certainly, I always wanted to be honest with them about what they're facing. You don't want to go in and make light of what's going on or try and underplay or downplay the significance of it. But at the same time, you can let them know that, look, here's the problem we're in. Now here's the solution that we want. And now let's talk about how we get there. So for me, that was always kind of the way I approached it. But it was very important to get there right away, because this is, for a lot of these kids, this has never happened before. So just the whole idea of being handcuffed and arrested and transported and jailed at that age is extremely frightening. And the sooner that I could get in and start trying to move things forward, the better.
In a case like Rod's, where he had been gang affiliated before, he removed the gang tattoos, he denounced his gang, he actually had served a year in juvenile prison, got out before he was rearrested for the possession of weed at the time. Is there ever a thought that goes through your mind, I'm advocating for him, I'm his public defender, that's my job, but I'm a little cautious here, because is he going to get out and get in trouble again? How do you resolve those sort of conflicting issues when you're representing a young person who obviously deserves a second chance, right? That's what the system is for youth, is rehabilitation. But do you ever worry about, them returning back to the streets that got them in trouble in the first place?
Well, specifically with Roderick, and the first comment with respect to his denouncing of gang affiliation, I think you'll recall that all the people that we spoke to back when we were filming, everybody found it very unusual for somebody to have actually done that, and myself included. Particularly in that area, to have left a gang and tried to turn your life around is extraordinarily difficult and extraordinarily brave. Whatever the reasons were that led him to do that, we don't know, but it happened. And we all know, having done this, that once you're in a gang, the gangs don't want you to leave. The information, the things you've seen, the crimes you may have witnessed committed, you have all of that information. So when you decide, I'm not going to be a part of you anymore, that creates enormous risk for the person leaving the gang because of what they've seen and heard and maybe done, or probably more so seen others do during the time that they were with the gang. So for him to have taken that step, it shows that he actually is capable, and in my mind, that was further evidence of his, at least his real pull toward trying to put his life in the right direction. But look, none of this is, you do it once, you get caught, you get rehabilitated, and you're off going to Harvard, right? This is always a constant struggle with trying to keep kids on the right track. And with respect to worrying about committing the crimes again, certainly we do, and you don't want to see that happen. But the biggest worry is, we can rehabilitate the kids, but we really can't rehabilitate the home that they're going back to. And so oftentimes when you see a kid like Roderick, now luckily in Roderick's case, his mother was supportive of him during this process, and I think provided some of the tough love that was necessary to help him out. In a lot of cases, as you know, we don't have that support structure. So the real fear in many of these cases, and I'm sure some will talk about, is that when we do what we do in juvenile court. We put them back in a situation that leads them right back to the reasons that brought them here in the first place.
Right. You know, we've had several viewers comment on some of our videos that feature you representing kids in court, you know, how much they appreciate you taking the time to represent these kids. Obviously, you know, you were doing so pro bono. You were not charging the families at the time. You were working through the courts as their public defender. And there seemed to be a real, you know, people were grateful that there were people like you who were willing to represent kids like Roderick and so many others. Have you always had a passion for this, or what led you to want to do that kind of work? Juveniles are different than, you know, the adult criminal justice system.
Yeah, and maybe part of my, you know, success I've had in defending juveniles is that I've never defended adults. My primary practice is a civil trial lawyer. So, you know, my job through my private practice really is standing up for the little guy and trying to make sure that there's justice for, you know, whatever circumstances they found themselves in. So my approach to juvenile cases, when I first began, around the time that we were filming, it was less to do probably about passion of helping kids and more to do about doing good work with what I was asked to do. And that really meant not just treating these kids as a pro bono case and another number that's kind of coming through the system, but treating each one like a client, like an individual, and doing my best to make sure that they get justice for the situation that they're in. So, you know, then as time goes on, obviously, you really develop more of a passion for it, right? You develop it through the experience of doing it, where it really becomes something that you then, you know, you seek out and you want to continue doing good for them. But at the beginning, it really was just a desire to do good work and help these kids out.
You know, from what we can tell, Roderick hasn't been back in the system. Oftentimes it's hard for us to find out where the kids are because juvenile cases, unlike adult cases, aren't made public. But we haven't been able to find any information indicating that he has been back in the system, which is always heartening for us to hear. Do you know if that's the case? Have you heard any follow-up information on Rod?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I could tell, and I've tried to look as well, it sounds like, I mean, what we know about Roderick is that we don't know anything about Roderick, which is probably a good thing in this scenario. You know, I hold out hope that you know, he seemed when we last heard from him that his, you know, all the pieces were in place for him. He was at the right age. Again, he didn't have a family problem like we see. It was really a problem with his own choices. So with the help of the court, with the help then hopefully of his family, that once he went home, he was able to straighten things out. So
That's always good to hear. And as you say, a lot of times when we're trying to do updates on kids, it's always good when we can't find anything about them rather than finding them in the Department of Correction offender database.
Or obituaries.
Yeah, or obituaries. And we've sadly had far too many of those. I want to move on to another case that was rather dramatic, and that was the case of Morris. And Morris was also brought in at that time police found him trespassing, sitting on the stoop of an apartment building, smoking weed with some friends, brought him into the detention center. Now, you know, we're talking, what's it been, 12 years?
Yeah.
At least. And our laws and our attitudes regarding marijuana have obviously changed a lot since then. It's legal in a lot of states now. It's still not legal in Indiana. But a lot of our viewers were outraged that a kid could be picked up for smoking weed and being high. But let's look back at how things were 12 years ago when this case was filmed. Do you recall meeting Morris and representing him and what your thoughts were at that time?
Yeah, no, I remember Morris very well. I mean, when you first meet Morris, at least when I did, he seemed extraordinarily sweet and quiet. He, you know, was soft-spoken, and it took a little while to get him to open up. Some of the extended footage you have, I think, shows that it took some time to get him beyond the guard, I think, that he had developed. It was clear that he was used to trying to protect himself, probably from saying the wrong thing to the wrong people at the wrong time. So, he was the kind of client that I had who, wasn't in there for something that you would think is something anybody should go to jail or prison for. But the concern is that a symptom of something more serious that's going on? Now, even though, the attitudes toward marijuana use and the time since Morris was involved have changed significantly. Given his age at the time, it'd be no different than if he was doing that same thing, but was intoxicated at the time. He's still a minor, and even though we may not view marijuana with the same level of a scrutiny that we still certainly wouldn't want to see somebody of his age, at that time of day, high, as opposed to doing the more productive things we want kids his age to be doing. So I didn't have a problem with the arrest and getting him involved with the juvenile court system, because what we wanted to do with Morris really is stop this from leading to something else. If you're high all the time, you're not going to school, you're not doing your homework, you're not doing the other responsibilities that you have. And when those things start falling off, at that age, things can turn from a simple marijuana case to then truancy to drug use. Things can get out of hand quickly. So Morris is a great example of the kind of case where the juvenile court system gets involved, not necessarily just to punish the simple crime, if you will, but to try and right the ship to make sure that Morris hopefully doesn't get further off track.
Right. I know when we were talking about Roderick, you were saying one of the things that was so helpful was that his mom was so supportive and gave him the tough love that he needed. And Morris's mom played a huge role in his case, especially when it came time for his court hearing. And I remember a very dramatic time in the courtroom when his mom was on the stand and you asked her if she would be willing to take Morris home. And her response was, "I'm always willing, but I'm just wondering if that's the best option right now." And I, as a producer in the courtroom, the minute she said "but," knew this case was probably about to take a turn, because the judge heard that, you heard that. How difficult or unexpected was that moment in court? And do you know, as an attorney ahead of time, that something like this can happen?
Well, one of the things I would say is that dynamic that we saw with Morris's mom and her stated willingness, yet obvious unwillingness to take Morris home, is one of the things that's very unique to these juvenile cases. If this was a drug charge in adult court and somebody was charged with possession of marijuana, the discussion in the courtroom is not going to be, can the parent take the child home and would it be safe? So this is a great example of one of the unique aspects of the juvenile court system as it functions, that we're even asking these questions, that we're asking questions of the parents, because what we want to understand is there the appropriate and necessary support at home to continue with the rehabilitation of the issue involved, in this case Morris's marijuana use. So obviously the juvenile court is not looking to keep permanent custody of kids or put kids in jail indefinitely, right? And that's what waiver to the adult court and prison is all about. Our job is to get kids in, punish them a little bit, rehabilitate them more so, and hopefully deter them from engaging in the same type of activity or something worse in the future. But the goal is always not to keep them locked up. It's to send them back home to their families. So it's a critical component of any of these cases. With respect to Morris, I had a sense that that's where the mother was going. I did meet with her beforehand and we discussed it, and it wasn't entirely clear. She was thinking about it, and certainly I try and gently push towards that, knowing that that's ultimately what Morris wants. But at the same time, you don't want to push it too hard and send them back home to an environment that results in them coming right back again.
It also came out during court and during the time that I interviewed Morris, and during his visitation with his mom, that he had this this anger problem, this really deep-seated anger problem, which was very sad to me at such a young age. But that anger problem also seemed to weigh heavily into his mom's decision about saying he wasn't ready to come home. How often do you see this in kids that you represent? Because just as a producer, we seem to see it over and over and over again, this issue of kids at a very young age having a lot of anger.
Yeah, anger is a big part of what we see. Mental health issues generally are something that even more so now than when we filmed. I think the court's a little, and all the professionals are even more mindful of trying to delve into to kind of get to the root of what's going on. But I also think that the whole spectrum of mental health issues with young kids has gotten worse with social media and all of their actions being judged by their peers in real time, and the desire to outcool somebody else and get instant responses and instant likes from as many people as you can. And on the other side of that, seeing that other people have things that you don't and how great their lives are and yours aren't. I mean, all of those things, particularly when you have children who aren't always supervised at home, they're left alone for hours on devices, and this is constantly reinforced. It takes those predispositions of, a lot of these kids growing up in homes where they do have a lot of depression or fear or anger, where they're constantly worried about not worried about the simple things like what's for dinner, but worried about, is dad going to come home drunk? Is he going to beat mom? Is there going to be drugs sold across the street? Am I going to get shot walking to school? I mean, those types of fears understandably lead to significant mental health issues that I think have only been really reinforced and made worse with social media over the last decade or so. So it's very common.
It is true. So much has changed in the whole social media atmosphere since we first filmed, and how that weighs into kids, mental health today. Is really just unbelievable to think of the difference that a decade can make.
Yeah.
I remember at one point during Morris's court hearing, he was being less than truthful on the stand. And you said to the judge, can I have a minute with my client? And you walked up to the stand and you whispered to him, listen.
Don't lie.
He said, listen, she has all the information in front of her. Don't lie. Yeah. Can you, thinking back to that, is that stressful for you? Trying to do your best to represent them and then to have a kid. Obviously, he was still a kid,
Sure.
Kids do those things.
Yeah.
But do you remember that moment in court?
Oh yeah, no, it was clear that the questions the judge was asking, she already knew the answers to. And it's clear that she was asking to get a sense of how much of the responsibility he was willing to take for what happened. And I knew as the lawyer that if he simply acknowledged what happened, and had some type of repentance for what happened, that things would very much be moving in our direction. But the single biggest thing you can do to destroy your case is to lie on the stand, whether you're a child or an adult. It never ends up well. There's probably a little more latitude if you're a child under these circumstances to get away with it, which is why I felt okay going up to the stand, shaking him a little bit and letting him re-answer the question, and which he did. But you don't want to destroy your credibility when the next questions are going to be, are you going to do this again when you go home? If you just lied on a simple question, it makes it much more difficult to credibly answer the important questions.
Sure. At the end of his hearing, the judge made the determination that Morris should be sent to a placement facility to receive, programs and services to hopefully help address the underlying issues that landed him in juvenile in the first place, and to hopefully get the family back to a point of reunification where everyone felt comfortable. A lot of people don't understand what placement is. Is that another form of detention? Is it prison? Can you explain a little bit for viewers who might not understand what placement is when ordered by the juvenile system?
Yeah, so again, when you're removing a child, when you make the decision, first of all, that the child's not going to go home, the question is, what do we do with the child, right? I mean, so one option is to remain detained in the juvenile court detention center, but that's not designed for long-term placement. So very quickly in the evolution of these cases, when the decision's made the child should not go home for whatever reason, we have to decide where is the child going to go, who can best care for and provide the services that the child needs. Well, the good news is that the court takes a pretty good look at, a hard look at what is the appropriate place where they can benefit the most. So one option you mentioned would be almost like a prison type of environment for the most serious cases. They have what I think at one point was called boys' school, which is more of a lockdown facility with services, but there's also then kind of intermediate facilities, like generically called placement facilities. I'm not quite sure why the name is what it is, but where it is less regimented in terms of, it would look much less like a prison and more like a day camp that a child spends the night at as well, where they have access to individualized education plans, therapy, counseling, parental visitation, and really with the idea that this is short term and specifically designed to address the problems with the child and the family. There'll be family counseling involved where the mom comes, the child comes, they kind of work together on these issues. And then hopefully within a very short period of time, then at that point, the child's returned back home.
As we wrap up Morris's case, we again, did some research into where Morris is today, and I'll read you what we found. At the age of 21, he was convicted of robbery and served time in prison. He was released in 2015, and then in April of 2022, he was arrested on a firearm possession charge and sentenced to 24 months in prison and 2 years of supervised release. Does this surprise you at all, or is this something that you often see because some of the kids you represent are so young when you represent them that they still have, several years left of their teenage life and young adult life to kind of work through whatever issues they're working through, and they oftentimes end up back in trouble again?
Yeah, and I think specifically when we talk about Morris, and that's obviously disappointing to hear, and you often then reflect and ask yourself, are we doing a good job as a juvenile court system in accomplishing the goal of trying to keep kids on the right track? And it doesn't surprise me in the sense that despite our best efforts, some kids aren't just making a mistake that gets them arrested and involved in the court system and we correct the mistake. They're unfortunately, the mistake in some cases is more of a symptom of the environment that they're in and in the community that they're in. And we can reprimand them for the mistake, but we can't always change what their life is outside of the court back at home. And so I think that's the hard part that we struggle with, is that Morris got punished a little bit for what he had done, but we send him back into the same friend groups and the same community and the same day-to-day living that he had beforehand, and there's not much that the court can do to remedy all of those things that are influencing a child of that age. And if those things aren't fixed, and if the child, like Morris, still stays in those runs in those circles, then you're going to get the same or worse things happening.
Yeah.